Hello everyone. From today we are going to start the fifth unit video session of web technology. The unit name is client and server side frameworks. Till fourth unit we have seen languages and the processes that are used for client and server side languages, and in this unit we are going to see actual framework for the client and server side language. Okay. So, important parts of this unit content are AngularJS, Node.js, and Structs. It is very important unit as per your exam point of view. Okay, and all the contents of this unit are based on recent technologies that are widely used in today's market. So that will be very much helpful for you guys after your engineering as well. Okay, so these three parts we are going to see in elaborative way. So firstly we will see with AngularJS. Okay, so in that we are going to see AngularJS, its overview, MVC architecture, directives, expression, controllers, filters, tables, modules, forms, includes, views, scopes, services, dependency injection, custom directives, internationalization. Okay, so there are so many contents, and the contents also express that how important the AngularJS can be, because all the contents that you are reading here are very new to you. You have used few of them like forms, includes, views, filters, tables, etc. in previous languages as well, but this is much extended version of your previous scripting languages. Okay, so we'll start first with the AngularJS introduction. AngularJS is a JavaScript framework, and it can be added to an HTML page with a script tag. Okay, it is actually a JavaScript MVC framework which runs at client side and used to execute dynamic web applications. Mostly it was designed for running dynamic web applications. Okay, it can be added to HTML page with script tag. AngularJS extends to HTML attribute with directives and binds data to HTML with expressions. We'll elaborate this statement afterwards, but before that, we'll clarify AngularJS. It is completely based on HTML and JavaScript. Okay. Sometimes the AngularJS is also pronounced as Angular, and the main aim of AngularJS is to convert static HTML into dynamic HTML. I will repeat, the main aim of AngularJS is to convert static HTML into dynamic HTML. It adds built-in attributes and components, also enhances ability to generate custom attributes with the help of simple JavaScript. Okay, and this extends the ability of HTML. What it is actually doing, it is adding built-in attributes and components and enhances the ability to generate custom attributes. And how it is going to do that? With the simple JavaScript. So this is helpful for extending the HTML ability, and it becomes the next version of HTML as well. So nowadays AngularJS is probably one of the best advanced web framework available, and the main purpose is to develop single page applications. Okay, so it is considered a very powerful JavaScript oriented framework that is used to reach internet applications, a single page application or reach internet application, that is RIA. Okay, then coming back to this statement, The AngularJS extends HTML attributes with directives. So as told, the AngularJS extends the HTML attributes with directives. With directives, that means it is using some directives to make simple applications or many built-in applications used widely with simple JavaScript. Okay, and it is binding data to HTML with expressions. Okay, so all these things, directives and expressions with the HTML's built-in attributes, will make AngularJS extended AngularJS. Okay, and it will extend the HTML. Then we can see the syntax of AngularJS, how the script is written. So we are basically starting with the simple script tag. So script and src, that is providing the AngularJS directive and expressions that are contained with under this source or under this link, that is https ajax.googleapis.com, ajax libraries, that is libs, AngularJS 1.6.4 and angular.meme.js. Okay, so this is the simple source you have to add while you are using the AngularJS programs. Okay, next, as told, the AngularJS extends HTML, so it extends with ng directive. Okay, AngularJS extends HTML with ng directives. Now you have seen here word ng directives. So what this ng stands for? The ng is for Angular. Okay, so Angular directives are written as ng directives. Okay, so basically the AngularJS is made up of ng directives, ng expressions, ng app, ng model and ng bind. Okay, so we'll see what this ng things actually work in HTML or AngularJS. Okay, so the ng app directive defines AngularJS application. Okay, if we want to define any AngularJS application, then you have to use ng app. Okay, then ng model. The ng model directive binds the value of HTML controls, that is input, select, out, rest area, to the application data. And the third point, the ng bind directive binds application to the HTML view. Okay, so these are main contents of your ng script. Okay, so while writing it into the script, you will get clear idea about how to use this ng app, ng model and ng bind. Okay, then the next part is MVC architecture. Okay, so AngularJS is based upon the MVC architecture, that is model view controller or MVC. Okay, as it is popularly called MVC architecture. Okay, so MVC architecture's main contents are model, view and controller. So we will see what is model, view and controller as in the part of AngularJS. Okay, so MVC is basically a software design pattern that is used for developing web applications. Okay, then the MVC architecture basically contains three main parts. Okay, then in that, the first part is model. It is the lowest level of pattern responsible for maintaining the data, whatever data of that particular software is there, that can be expressed with the model part. Then the second part is view. It is responsible for displaying all or a portion of data to the user. Okay, so view is for display of data. So how much data or which data to be showed to user or which should be hidden from the user, that can be maintained with the view part. And third part is controller. So controller is a software code that controls the interaction between model and view. So whatever interactions are being carried out between the model part and view part, that is for maintaining data and display of data. So control of both these interactions is handled by the controller part. Okay, so the model is basically responsible for managing application data. It responds to the request from view and to the instructions from controller to update itself. It is doing two things. It is responding to the request from view, okay, and the instructions from controller. So you have to get a clear idea, like the view can send request to AngularJS, and the controller who is controlling the interaction between model and view. The controller is giving instructions to the model part. Okay, view can request and controller can instruct. Okay, so this part have to be revised. Then the second part elaborated, the view part. Okay, a presentation of data in a particular format triggered by the controller's decision to present the data. Okay, they are script-based template systems such as JSP, ASP, PHP, and are very easy to interact with Ajax technology. So what this view part contains is the presentation of data in a particular format that is triggered by controller's decision. So the controller is a part which is present at both the parts, previous parts, like the model part and the view part as well, because it is controlling the whole MVC architecture. Okay, so whatever controller decision is there for presenting data, that may be all the data should be visible to user or some part should be hidden. So all these decisions are made by the controller and instructed to the view part. Okay, and view part is basically working upon script based templates. Okay, and it is using JSP, ASP, PHP and integrated with the Ajax technology. Okay, so now moving to the third part, which is controlling previous two parts also, is the controller. The controller responds to user input and performs interaction on the data model objects. Okay, the controller receives input, validates it, and then performs business operations that modify the state of data model. Then the AngularJS is a MVC based framework, and we will see how AngularJS uses MVC methodology. So we will see the MVC architecture with diagram, and there are basically three parts which are clearly defined: what is model, view and controller. So model, we can see the architecture is made with these three components. So model is containing the data, the view part is containing the HTML and CSS. So basically view part is for displaying of data, so it is using the HTML and CSS. Okay, that we have seen how HTML and CSS can be used for display of data. HTML and CSS basically focuses on display of data on the web page. We have already seen that. Okay, so you can revise that as well. And the third part is controller. Okay, the controller uses JavaScript and architecture or application services. Okay, so this is the simple MVC architecture view. Okay, so basically, as told, the AngularJS application is consisting of three important parts, that are ng-app, ng-model and ng-bind. So how these are working with the MVC architecture, that again we will see. Okay, so ng-app directive, I have told before, it is used to add the applications to HTML. Okay, so how these applications are used is this directive defines and links the AngularJS application to HTML. Okay, so what ng app will do, it will define and link the AngularJS application to HTML. Second, ng model will bind the values of AngularJS application data to HTML input controls. There is difference in all these three parts. ng app will link the AngularJS application to HTML. ng model will bind the AngularJS application data to HTML input control. Okay, and ng bind will bind AngularJS application data to HTML tags. Okay, so ng model and ng bind are working on application data, and ng app is purely working on links and AngularJS application. Okay, so these are the main three components for creating your AngularJS application. Then there are few steps how to create AngularJS. Step 1 is load framework. How to use the framework using script tag. So as told before, you have to include the related links in your script tag. So script, src, and src will be holding the value or the link that you want to include in your program which is related to Angular. Okay, then step 2, define AngularJS application using ng app directive. So div ng dash app will be holding the Angular app, that is ng app directive. Step 3, define a model name using ng model directive. Then how to use that ng model directive, we'll see. There is one paragraph started with the p tag. P, enter your name and input type is text plus the next attribute is ng model. Okay, and you have to specify the name. So here you can specify the ng model directive name. Okay. Step 4 is binding the value of above model defined using ng bind directive. This is the last step, but it is based upon the previous step. Like whichever name of ng model you have provided, based upon that defined model, you have to use ng bind directive. Okay, so ng bind directive, how it can be used, we'll see. We have again started the paragraph with hello and span ng bind equals to name. Here you have to bind the value for specified model and span closed, paragraph closed. Okay, so these are simple steps how to use or how to create the AngularJS application. So we'll see how to use it in example. So basically we have started with the HTML script and script tag for including the Angular link in the program. So I have provided that particular link. Then in the body tag I have defined ng app. Okay, then in paragraph name, input type is text, ng model name is name. Okay, it is basic syntax example of your AngularJS. Okay, so I have specified the model name. Then p ng bind, so the model name is name and ng bind will hold the directives related to your model defined. Okay, that is name here, and close the div tag, close body part, HTML part. Okay, so what this example contain, you can see this program. The AngularJS starts automatically when the web page is loaded. First and important part. Then the ng app directive tells AngularJS that div element is the owner of AngularJS application. Okay, what ngapp will tell, it is for AngularJS that the div element is owner of AngularJS application. Then the Angular model directive, that is ng model directive, it binds the value of input field to the application variable name. Okay, so variable I have used here is, okay, the model name here. Okay, then the ng bind directive binds inner HTML of paragraph element to the application variable name. Here in the second paragraph we have used ng bind part. Okay, so ng bind directive binds the inner HTML of paragraph element to the application variable name. Okay, so ng model variable we have used with the name, and the ng bind also works for that particular model variable. That means it will also work for the name variable. Okay, so this is simply explained how the AngularJS can be created. Then how AngularJS actually integrates with the HTML. Already specified that there are some built-in applications that are extended with the simple JavaScript application, but how actually it becomes the Angular or extended version of your HTML can be seen with this point. Okay, the ngapp directive indicates the start of AngularJS application. ng model directive then creates a model variable named name. Okay, again we are focused on the same example of creation of AngularJS. Okay, in that the ng model directive create a model variable, and the model variable name we have kept as name, which can be used with the HTML page and within div tag having ngapp directive. Then the third part is ng bind then uses the name model to display in the HTML span tag whenever the user input something in the text box. Okay, so what ng bind will do, it will then use the name model which is already defined with the ng model tag directive. It will use the name model to be displayed in the HTML span tag. Okay, we are seeing this ng bind is used with the span tag. Okay, whenever user input something in the text box, you can see that, and closing the div tag indicates the end of AngularJS application. Okay, so till now we have seen the overview of AngularJS and main parts or components of how to create that AngularJS application, and we have also seen the MVC architecture and what are the basic parts like model, view, controller, and which particular part performs important operation, that also we have gone through. We have also seen the example and basic three parts like ngapp, bind, and ng model and ng bind that are making the AngularJS application. Okay, so in the next video we will see the directives, expressions, and controllers that are making AngularJS a extended HTML. Okay, so till now get a review of this notes as well and the video sessions as well. We will meet in the next session.